Welcome to the Funeral Channel Network podcast for today's deep dive. And I want to start by having you picture something.
Okay, I'm ready.
So usually when we talk about like a medical diagnosis, right, there is this expectation of absolute precision.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's very clear-cut.
Exactly. You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points to it. They say, there it is, that's the problem, and here's the exact cast we are going to use to fix it.
Right, it's completely binary. It's either broken or it's not broken.
Yes. It's so measurable. And, it's comforting in a way.
Well, yeah, because it's a closed system. I mean, we find a deep, almost psychological comfort in things that can be made visible, things we can categorize and treat with a linear set of instructions.
Right.
You diagnose it, you treat it, you heal, step 1, step 2, step 3.
But then you step into the world of human emotion, specifically the world of grief, loss, and remembrance.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole different reality.
And suddenly, that x-ray machine is just utterly useless. You are looking at an emotional landscape that is murky, it's disorienting, and completely nonlinear.
It's basically a profound fog.
Exactly. And yet, right in the middle of that fog, when you can, barely remember to drink a glass of water, you are suddenly handed a clipboard.
Yeah, the dreaded checklist.
Right. You're handed this checklist of highly practical, incredibly visible, and deeply urgent tasks. You have to order food. You have to contact relatives.
And deal with the venue, the officiant.
Yes, all of it. And somehow, right in the middle of this, you're expected to design and print a beautiful, fitting tribute to a human life.
I mean, it is the absolute definition of an impossible cognitive collision.
Wow, cognitive collision. I like that.
Well, it is. You are being forced to navigate one of the most abstract, heavy emotional experiences a human being can endure. And simultaneously, the world is demanding that you act as an event planner, a coordinator, and very often a graphic designer.
Which is just wild when you think about it.
Yeah. It's a psychological whiplash. It leaves families feeling completely paralyzed.
Which is exactly why we are dismantling that checklist today. So if you are listening to this right now, we are looking into the invisible architecture of grief and remembrance.
It's such an important topic.
It really is. Our mission for today's deep dive is unpacking a specific guide. It's the Clean, Elegant Funeral Program PDF, which relies heavily on the design principles and frameworks utilized by the funeral program site.
Right, the real practical stuff.
Yeah, because our goal here isn't just to talk about, margins and paper stock. It's to figure out how anyone can achieve a highly polished, deeply respectful design without having a breakdown at 2 in the morning.
And without needing a 4-year degree in graphic design, frankly.
Exactly. And understanding that methodology, it really starts by recognizing what this piece of paper actually is.
Because the approach we are analyzing today, it hinges on this idea that a funeral program is never just an itinerary.
Right. It's doing way more than that.
Yeah. Right. It is serving a fascinating, highly demanding dual purpose. It has to do 2 entirely different jobs at the exact same time for people who are in a state of emotional extremis.
I feel like the first job is the most obvious one, right? It's basically an emergency map.
Emergency map, yeah.
Like when people walk into a funeral service, the air is just thick with anxiety.
Right.
Maybe they haven't seen the family in a decade.
Or maybe they don't know the religious customs of this particular venue at all.
Totally. They are carrying all this social and emotional apprehension, and handing them a program is basically handing them a tether.
That's a great way to put it.
It tells them, look, here's where you are, here's what is going to happen next, and here's exactly who is going to speak.
Yes, it provides this immediate grounding. It's an anchor in a very turbulent room.
Right.
But, it's that second job that carries the lasting weight.
The keepsake aspect.
Exactly, because long after the service concludes, long after the venue is cleared out and the flowers have wilted, that folded piece of paper undergoes a transformation.
It ceases to be a practical guide.
Right, it becomes a time capsule. It is the physical artifact that attendees carry to their cars, take into their homes, and tuck into a family Bible or a drawer or a memory box.
There's an emergency map for the present and a time capsule for the future.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a staggering amount of pressure to put on an 8x11 sheet of paper.
It really is.
And if it's going to function as both a map and a time capsule, you can't just throw a bunch of text onto a page and hope people figure it out.
No, absolutely not.
You have to be incredibly intentional about how you guide them through it. Which brings us to the structural foundation of this entire process.
The underlying layout, the architecture of the program.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I keep picturing like a museum curator.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, if you are designing a retrospective of an artist's entire life, you don't just dump all their paintings in the lobby, lock the doors, and yell at the guests to figure it out, right?
No, that would be a terrible museum.
Right. You have to pace them. You guide them. And the methodology we are looking at highlights 4 core structural components that do this pacing.
Right, the source material breaks this down very clearly.
Yeah, it lists the cover, the order of service, the obituary, and the acknowledgments. And they have to flow seamlessly, like a good story.
And what's fascinating here is that this flow, it's not merely an aesthetic choice. It is a physiological necessity.
Wait, physiological, like it affects the body.
Yes, absolutely. Because when someone is grieving, their brain is essentially running on 1% battery.
Oh, wow, 1%.
Yeah, they are dedicating immense neural resources to processing shock, managing these sudden waves of memory, and dealing with the social anxiety of saying the right thing to the bereaved family.
Not to mention the physical fatigue of, like, sudden travel. A lot of people flying in overnight for these things.
Exactly. So when the human brain is under that kind of acute stress, its capacity to process new, complex, or disorganized information drops to near zero.
So if you hand them a program where the order of service is just, like, jumbled up with a random poem.
And the obituary starts on page 2, but inexplicably jumps to the back cover.
You are draining that last 1% of their battery.
Precisely. You are drastically increasing their cognitive load. You are forcing a grieving brain to solve a puzzle just to understand what is happening in the room.
That makes so much sense. I never thought about bad design actually causing mental fatigue.
Well, it does. But if you provide a naturally flowing layout where the cover greets them gently, the order of service provides that immediate reassurance of what to expect. The obituary offers a moment of deep reflection, and the acknowledgments provide a gentle release at the end. You are providing what we call cognitive ease.
Cognitive ease, it's almost like you're taking them by the hand.
Yeah.
You're communicating, hey, we have you, just breathe and follow along. You don't need to figure anything out today.
That's it exactly. Structure is a subtle, profound form of comfort. It absorbs the mental burden so the attendee can simply be present with their emotions.
But, I mean, realizing that you need to provide that comforting structure and actually building it from scratch on a glowing white computer screen are 2 very different things.
Oh, completely.
Staring at a blank document trying to invent a flawless, psychologically soothing layout sounds terrifying, especially on zero sleep.
Yes. And this is where the strategy shifts from theory to immense practicality.
Right.
The framework provided by resources, like the funeral program site, relies heavily on professional templates because the architecture is already mathematically calculated and baked in.
So you aren't inventing the flow.
No, you are inheriting a proven flow. You are bypassing the structural engineering phase entirely.
That is such a relief. I don't have to sit there dragging text boxes around hoping the margins look right.
Or praying that the document naturally guides the eye. The load-bearing pillars are already erected. Your task is no longer construction. Your task is curation.
Curation, I love that. So we've mapped out the journey. The walls are up. The path is clear. But the way you speak to people on that journey matters immensely.
The visual tone.
Yeah. If I'm guiding you through that museum we talked about, I'm not screaming at you through a megaphone, and I'm not whispering so quietly that you have to strain to hear me.
Right.
The structure is invisible if it's done well, but the typography and the colors, those are the silent communicators. They set the emotional volume of the entire room the second someone looks at the page.
They absolutely do.
Let's dig into the typography aspect first, because the source material has a very specific rule here. It demands clean, readable fonts paired with subtle decorative accents to create sophistication.
Yes. And the pairing is where the true elegance lives. And unfortunately, it is also where the DIY approach most frequently collapses into chaos.
Because people assume that if the event is formal, the font needs to be the most elaborate, swirling script they can possibly find on their computer, right?
Exactly.
They equate elegant with complicated.
Yes, they scroll past all the clean utilitarian fonts, find a highly calligraphic ornate script, and decide to write a 1,000-word obituary in it.
Oh no, just a Wallace word.
Right. And while that single letter S might look beautiful in isolation, when you string 1,000 words of it together, it becomes a visual disaster.
And you have to consider the environment, right? We are talking about older guests, perhaps with failing eyesight.
Sitting in the back of a softly lit church or funeral home.
Often with tears in their eyes.
Yes. Those ornate loops and swirls just bleed together. the text becomes an impenetrable block of ink.
So the intent was elegance, but the result is total illegibility.
Exactly. It defeats the entire purpose of writing the tribute if no one can physically read it.
But on the flip side, I imagine if you swing too far the other way and use a rigid, bold font that you'd see on, like, a corporate tax form, it strips away all the warmth.
Yeah, it feels completely clinical, cold.
So what's the solution to this tightrope walk between illegibility and coldness?
It's the pairing technique mentioned in the guide. You utilize a crisp, clean, highly readable font for the heavy lifting.
The heavy lifting being the body of the obituary, the detailed lists in the order of service.
Correct. This ensures that the story of the person's life is actually accessible. Then you reserve that beautiful, ornate script purely as an accent.
Ah, like just for the person's name on the cover.
Exactly, or for the major headings. It provides the grace note without overpowering the melody.
And again, if you are using a professionally designed template, you aren't guessing which script font mathematically complements which body font. Typographers have already solved that equation for you. You just type in the name.
Which saves so much mental energy.
Okay, so we have the voice dialed in. The text is readable but graceful. Now we have to address the backdrop. We have to talk about color palettes.
The visual stage.
Right. And the guidance we have warns very explicitly against overly bright or clashing colors. It strongly advocates for soft, muted tones to convey calm and reverence.
Because color psychology is perhaps the most immediate trigger for the human nervous system. Before your brain even registers the words on the page, your eyes absorb the color palette.
And your nervous system reacts accordingly. But wait, here's what it gets really interesting. I want to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm struggling with the idea that muted tones are universally the right answer. What if the person we are honoring had a massive, explosive, vibrant personality?
Ah, yes. The vibrant personality question.
Yeah. What if they were famous in their community for wearing neon Hawaiian shirts or bright hot pink dresses, and they absolutely despised anything beige, muted, or quiet?
Right, they were loud and proud.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we force their memorial into a soft pastel palette, doesn't it feel like we are stripping away their actual identity just to conform to some rigid standard of funeral etiquette?
That is an incredibly valid concern, and honestly, it is a point of deep tension for many families who feel torn between celebrating vibrancy and maintaining reverence.
It feels like a betrayal of who they were, in a way.
I understand that, but I think we need to reframe how we view the function of the program's color palette.
Okay, how so?
The guidance isn't suggesting that the program should be devoid of the person's personality. It is suggesting that we need to avoid visual chaos.
Visual chaos. So it's about the background, not the person.
Yes. Think of the overall design as the stage, and the specific details of the person's life, their vibrant photos, the stories of their loud laughter, the quotes they loved, as the actors.
Yeah, I see where you're going.
If the stage is covered in flashing neon lights and wildly distracting patterns, the audience can't focus on the actors.
Right. If the container itself is loud, if you have neon green backgrounds with bright purple text, it's actually competing with the memories inside it. The design starts shouting over the person you're trying to honor.
That is exactly the mechanism at play. A muted, cohesive color palette isn't about suppressing a vibrant life. It is about providing a quiet, stable canvas so that the vibrant elements can actually stand out.
Wow, that completely shifts the perspective. The program is the velvet cushion. The person's life is the diamond.
I love that analogy.
Because if everything is loud, nothing is heard.
Precisely. If you place a photo of your loved one in their bright pink dress against a neon background, the photo gets lost in the noise.
Yeah, it just blends in.
But if you place that same photo against a soft, muted, highly intentional background, the photo jumps off the page. The vibrancy is celebrated, not swallowed.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you've created this beautiful, quiet stage with muted colors, and you have your elegant, readable fonts. But there's a massive psychological trap waiting for you right there.
There really is.
Because the moment you have a beautiful, clean canvas, human nature begs you to fill every single inch of it.
We just can't help ourselves.
Which brings us to a concept that completely changed how I view design. We've spent all this time talking about what to put on the page.
Yeah.
But the methodology pivots sharply here and introduces the absolute necessity of what you leave off the page entirely.
Yes, the unsung hero of graphic design and honestly the first casualty of grief-driven decision-making.
White space.
White space.
The literal physical empty space between the sections of text and the photographs.
Mm-hmm.
The methodology states that white space is essential for a clean design because it allows the content to breathe. But why is it so hard for us to do? Why does empty space feel like a failure when we are putting one of these together?
Because of the emotional stakes. We are talking about the impossible task of condensing an entire, rich, multi-decade human life. A life full of inside jokes, grand vacations, quiet moments, and complex relationships into 4 to 8 pages of folded paper.
It's impossible.
It is. So the grieving mind panics. It says, if I leave out the story about the fishing trip, I am failing to honor that part of them.
If I don't include all 4 of these beautiful poems, I am shortchanging their legacy.
Exactly.
It's an act of desperation. You want to prove how much they meant to the world, so you try to provide all the evidence at once.
You want everyone to see what you saw.
Right. You think, I'll just drop the font size down to 8 point, I'll push the text all the way to the absolute edge of the paper, and I'll squeeze in 10 more pictures.
And the tragedy of that impulse is that it creates the exact opposite of what the family desires.
How so?
Well, when you strip away all the white space, the program becomes a dense, impenetrable wall of text and a chaotic collage of overlapping images. The elements end up fighting a brutal war on the page for the reader's attention.
Oh, man.
And remember that grieving attendee with the 1% battery?
Right, the person whose brain is already overloaded.
They open a program that is crammed edge to edge with tiny text. Their brain registers the massive cognitive effort required to decipher it, and they simply shut down. They don't read any of it.
That is heartbreaking. By desperately trying to include everything, you accidentally ensure that nothing is fully appreciated.
It happens all the time.
So what does this all mean for the person actually making this? When a family member is sitting at their computer, surrounded by a mountain of beautiful photos and heartfelt letters they want to include, how do they practice that restraint?
By viewing editing not as an act of omission, but as an act of amplification.
Amplification. Okay,
Yeah.
explain that.
Elegance requires severe discipline. You have to choose the most impactful quote rather than 5 pretty good ones. You have to select the most representative story.
You have to curate.
Exactly. You have to understand that white space isn't just empty, wasted area. It is the visual silence that acts as a shock absorber for the brain. The empty space around a single, perfectly chosen poem is what gives that poem its weight and dignity.
It's exactly like music.
Yes.
The pause between the notes is what creates the rhythm. If a musician just plays every single note as fast and as loud as possible without any silence, it's not a melody, it's just noise.
That's a perfect analogy. The silence frames the art.
And speaking of the art we are framing, the elements we are choosing to protect with that white space, we have to talk about the most emotionally volatile and visually demanding elements of the entire program.
The photographs.
The photographs. Imagery is incredibly powerful.
Which is exactly why it requires the strictest discipline to manage properly within a layout.
The methodology is very clear on this. It says that images should enhance the design rather than dominate it,
Right.
which again fights against that very human instinct to plaster the deceased's face over every square millimeter of the paper.
See them everywhere. It's natural.
Totally natural.
Yeah.
But what fascinated me most was the insistence on placing these high-quality photos in designated, consistent areas to keep the visual presentation balanced. Why is consistency so vital here?
Because the human brain is fundamentally a hyperactive pattern-seeking machine.
A pattern-seeking machine.
Yes. When we look at any environment, whether it is a forest, a city street, or a printed document, our eyes are unconsciously scanning for underlying order. We are looking for alignment, for borders, for a hidden grid that tells us the environment is safe and intentional.
So there's an established grid, our brain just relaxes.
Exactly. If you have a photograph on page 2 that is perfectly centered, bordered by a precise half-inch margin, your brain likes that. It feels stable, professional, and comforting. But if you turn to page 3, and the next photograph is shoved slightly to the left, and the text margin is suddenly a 1/4 inch instead of a 1/2 inch, your brain immediately registers a disruption.
The analogy that jumps into my head is a musician skipping a beat.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, imagine you are listening to a beautiful, steady, comforting drum rhythm. Boom, tap, boom, tap. It's mesmerizing.
Right.
And then suddenly, the drummer hits the snare, a half second too early.
Ooh.
Right. Even if you don't know the first thing about music theory, your whole body physically cringes. It jars you. It pulls you completely out of the trance.
That is exactly what inconsistent margins and jagged photo alignments do to the reader.
Really, it has that same effect.
Yes, it yanks them out of the emotional experience of remembering the person and suddenly reminds them that they're holding a slightly flawed piece of paper. It breaks the spell.
Inconsistency is a visual skipped beat.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. And the methodology points out that maintaining this consistency, ensuring that margins, spacing, and font styles remain mathematically uniform throughout every single page, is what creates a cohesive look that feels highly intentional.
It is the visual equivalent of that steady, comforting drum beat.
Exactly. It allows the attendee to stay immersed in the emotion of the tribute without being distracted by structural hiccups.
But okay, let's get real for a second.
Mm.
We are talking about maintaining pixel-perfect margins, typographical harmony, color stage setting, and calculating cognitive shock absorbers.
It's a lot.
It's a massive amount, and I am putting myself in the shoes of someone listening to this right now.
Yeah.
If I am sitting at my kitchen table at 2 a.m. the night before the funeral, exhausted, heartbroken, and trying to build this, I would be having a full-blown panic attack. It sounds like an utterly impossible standard to meet when you are at your lowest point.
It is an impossible standard to meet from scratch under those conditions. Expecting a grieving family member to suddenly master the intricacies of visual alignment and typographic hierarchy is profoundly unfair.
Which is why the final piece of this methodology is so crucial.
Yes, the practical application.
Right. It isn't just about defining what makes a program elegant. It is about providing a life raft to actually get you there. The framework introduces the concept of efficiency meeting elegance through the practical solution of pre-engineered templates.
The relief that a proper template provides cannot be overstated in this context. It is the difference between drowning in technical frustration and being able to focus on honoring your loved one.
The guidance specifically points out that instead of experimenting with different layouts, guessing at font sizes, and fighting with alignment, you can rely on a proven design.
Right.
By utilizing templates, specifically the kind engineered by the funeral program site, you are instantly adopting all of that invisible architecture we talked about.
The font pairings are already locked in.
The mathematically perfect white space is already calculated.
The margins will not skip a beat.
You completely bypass the hours of technical frustration.
And we really need to emphasize a critical distinction made in this approach, because the word template can sometimes carry a negative connotation.
Yeah, people hear template and they worry it means cookie cutter or impersonal or generic.
They worry they're doing a disservice to their loved one's unique life.
Like they're just filling in a form at the DMV.
Exactly. But the methodology explicitly clarifies that using a structural template does not mean sacrificing deep personalization.
You're getting the underlying grid, the invisible, flawless architecture. But you are filling it with the unique, irreplaceable details of the person's life.
You are still choosing the photos. You are writing the stories. You are selecting the specific quotes or scriptures that define them.
The key phrase to focus on is that a template frees you from the frustration of troubleshooting design issues.
Yes. You aren't fighting with the software at 2 a.m., crying because a picture won't align.
Or because adding a single sentence suddenly caused all the text boxes to jump to the next page and ruin the entire layout. I've been there with regular documents, and it's infuriating.
It's the worst. But with a solid template, you're freed up to focus entirely on the emotional, meaningful work.
You get to be the curator of the legacy, not the mechanic fixing the engine.
Exactly. You are curating, not constructing. And that preserves your emotional energy for the things that actually matter.
And there's one more massive technical hurdle that this approach solves, which almost everyone forgets until the very last agonizing second.
Oh, the printing.
The final physical polish,
Yep.
the printing. Because you can have the most breathtaking, emotionally resonant design looking back at you on your computer screen.
But if you don't understand the physical mechanics of printing, the moment that paper comes out of the machine, it can turn into a disaster.
Printing is where a massive percentage of DIY designs tragically fail at the 11th hour.
It really is.
The methodology highlights that professional templates are engineered with print-ready settings. And when we talk about print-ready, we are just talking about aesthetic choices. We are talking about protecting your peace of mind.
Definitely.
Without those settings, you run into horrifying amateur mistakes, like the printer physically slicing off the first letter of every line because the text was pushed too far into the non-printable margin.
Or realizing that when you fold the paper down the middle, the crease runs directly right through the center of your loved one's
Well,
face.
that is the worst.
It goes right back to the concept of cognitive ease and consistency. A misprinted, unevenly folded program is deeply jarring to the attendee.
It totally breaks the reverence of the moment.
Print-ready settings are the final safety net that ensures the physical, tangible product perfectly matches the elegant digital intention.
And looking beyond just the program itself, the guidance points to a final advantage that I think is brilliant from a holistic perspective. It talks about expanding the theme.
Right, because the program doesn't exist in a vacuum.
No, it is part of a larger environment. The templates allow you to coordinate a unified visual theme across multiple items.
We are talking about matching designs for the prayer cards people take home, the bookmarks, the memorial posters standing in the lobby.
It creates a comprehensive visual environment for the entire service. It elevates the experience from a gathering into a true memorial.
When the prayer card flawlessly matches the folded program and the program seamlessly matches the large display poster, it sends a powerful subconscious signal to every person in the room.
It tells them that this life is being honored with the absolute utmost care, organization, and profound respect.
It provides a deep, encompassing sense of dignity. And practically, having access to these coordinated collections saves the family from the exhausting task of having to reinvent the wheel for every single item they need to produce for the service.
It is about creating a sense of total unity in a moment of ultimate loss and fragmentation.
Beautifully said.
And honestly, stepping back and looking at everything we have unpacked today, that is the core formula this methodology is offering us.
It really is.
Making a funeral program look clean and elegant isn't about proving how fancy of an artist you are. It is about the intersection of structure, restraint, and intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
It is understanding that a well-designed, professionally framed program is, at its heart, an act of care for your guests.
Yes.
It gives them a clear, comforting guide through the chaotic fog of the day, and it leaves them with a beautiful, dignified artifact they can hold on to forever. It proves that families can achieve a highly polished, deeply respectful tribute without adding massive technical stress to an already agonizing week.
It truly is a profound intersection of practical utility and deep emotional resonance, the mechanics of design serving the complexities of grief.
Absolutely. And to you listening right now, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. If you are facing this daunting task, whether you are in the thick of it today, preparing for tomorrow, or just tucking this knowledge away for somewhere down the road, we truly hope this exploration provided a real sense of relief.
You do not have to start from scratch in the dark.
No, you don't. There is a strong, beautiful framework waiting to carry the load for you.
You know, the underlying methodology we've explored today repeatedly emphasizes that a beautifully designed program becomes a lasting keepsake.
Yeah, that time capsule idea.
Right, and looking at the sheer amount of care, psychology, and design theory that goes into creating one, it brings up a fascinating point to ponder.
Oh, what's that?
Well, in our increasingly digital, cloud-based world, a world where physical photographs are rare and handwritten letters are almost extinct, well, these printed, elegantly crafted memorial programs eventually become one of the most precious and perhaps the very last physical artifacts a family holds on to tangibly prove a loved one was here.